Hi everyone, welcome back with me Mr. Yudi Wahyudin in English Language Assessment class. In the last meeting, we have explored the type of assessments in language teaching, types of tests in language teachings, principle and criteria of good tests in language teachings. Before we go further, please tell me your understanding about previous materials on the comment sections. And now, let's focus on the principle of language assessments. Let's discuss about definition of language assessment. Language assessment refers to a systematic process of measuring a learner's ability to use a language effectively across the four main skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Assessments help teachers understand how well students are achieving language learning objectives. We know that the purposes of language assessments. The first purpose is to identify language learners' proficiency levels. Second, to evaluate the effectiveness of language instructions. Third, to provide feedback to both learners and teachers. And then to adjust teaching materials according to learning needs. And the last, to measure learning outcomes and progress. Now, let's talk further about the core principles of language assessments. There are 6 key principles that guide effective language assessments. Number 1, validity. The assessment must measure what it is to be measured in terms of validity. For example, if the goal is to assess speaking skills, the assessment should involve actual speaking tasks, not written tests. In this validity, we have several types and categories that need to be taken into considerations. Number 1, content validity. Content validity refers to how far the tests align with the curriculum content. Number 2, construct validity. In this case, an assessment should align with the theoretical constructs of language ability. Number 3, criterion-related validity. This criterion validity refers to the test's ability to predict performance on another relevant test. For example, TOEFL can predict success in English medium universities. Number 2, reliability. The assessment should produce consistent and stable results over time and across writers. For example, 2 teachers scoring the same speaking performance should assign similar scores using shared rubric. And now, let's discuss about types of reliability. Number 1, inter-rater reliability. It refers to consistency between different raters. Number 2, test-retest reliability. It discusses consistency when the same test is given at different times. Let's talk further about practicality. The assessment should be visible in terms of time, cost, and effort so that it can be conducted easily by the teachers. For example, a short 10 minutes listening quiz using standard audio materials is more practical than a lab-based audio analysis. And the next, let's talk about authenticity. Tasks in the assessment should reflect real-life language use. For example, asking students to write an email or engage in role-play scenarios simulating real conversations. Number 5, washback. The assessment should have positive effects on teaching and learning process. For example, a reading comprehension test that encourages students to develop skimming and scanning strategies. And the last, fairness. The assessment must be free from bias and equitable to all students regardless of background. For example, avoid using culturally specific idioms that some students may not understand. In these sections, we will also discuss types of language assessments. In the field of language teaching, it is important to understand that not all assessments serve the same purpose. There are several types of language assessments. each designed to meet specific goals in the teaching learning process. First, let's discuss about diagnostic assessments. These assessments are given before the learning process begins. Their purpose is to identify students' strengths and weaknesses, helping teachers to determine appropriate starting points. For example, a placement test used at the beginning of a semester can help group students according to their language proficiency. Second, formative assessments. Formative assessments are used during the learning process. These assessments are not meant to assign final grades, but to provide ongoing feedback that helps both teachers and students adjust their learning strategies. For example, this kind of assessments include class discussions, weekly quizzes, reflection journals, or short oral presentations. Formative assessments play a key role in supporting learning as it happens. The third, summative assessments. These assessments are administered at the end of a learning unit. It can be semester or course. Their purpose is to measure how much students have learned, and usually for the purpose of assigning grades. For example, it includes a midterm or final exams, end of unit tests, and large sets of language proficiency assessment. Fourth, proficiency assessments. It measures a student's overall ability to use the language regardless of how or where it was learned. These tests are usually standardized and are often used for academic or professional purposes. For instance, the TOEFL or IELTS exams assess whether someone can function effectively in English-speaking environments such as universities or workplaces. Lastly, we will talk about achievement assessments. This type of assessments are tied to specific instructional goals. They measure how well students have mastered the content covered in a particular course or curriculum. For example, if students have just finished a unit on writing format letters, the achievement test will assess their ability to apply those specific writing conventions. Each type of assessment plays a unique and important role in supporting students' language learning journey. Understanding the function of each allows teachers to make better decisions about when and how to assess. Now, let's talk about how to apply the principles in classroom assessment. Let's move on to how the principle of assessments can be applied practically in the classroom. Good assessment practices are not just theoretical. They must be seen in how we design and conduct our daily teaching. Let's begin with validity in the classroom. In the classroom, this means designing assessments that truly reflect what has been taught. For instance, if your lessons focuses on writing format letters, then your test should ask students to actually write a formal letter, not just answer multiple choice grammar questions, and this ensures that the test is aligned with your learning objectives. Next, reliability. Reliability is about consistency in scoring. To apply this principle, teachers can use standardized rubrics that clearly define the criteria for grading. This helps avoid subjectivity and ensure that different students are graded fairly. Even if two teachers grade the same essay, they should assign similar scores if a clear rubric is used. Practicality reminds us that assessments must be manageable. Teachers should create tests that are easy to administer, easy to score, and easy to complete within the available time and resources. For example, instead of 30 minutes oral exam for each student, consider using pair work speaking tasks that can be observed and assessed more efficiently. Next, authenticity means making assessment as realistic as possible. For example, in a speaking test, you could ask students to role-play a situations such as ordering food at a restaurant or making a hotel reservations. This not only makes the task more engaging, but it also reflects how language is used in the real world. When we talk about the principle of washback or backwash, this principle refers to how assessments influence teaching and learning. Positive washback means the assessments encourages good learning habits. For example, if your reading test includes questions about reading strategies like identifying the main idea or guessing word meaning from context, students are more likely to practice those strategies in class. Finally, fairness requires that all students have equal opportunity to succeed on the assessments. This means avoiding culturally biased content and providing accommodations when needed. For instance, students with hearing difficulties might be given transcript for a listening task or extended time. By applying these principles, validity, reliability, practicality, authenticity, washback, and fairness, teachers can ensure that assessments not only measure learning, but also support the process in meaningful and inclusive ways. Let's discuss about the importance of language assessment in English learning. Language assessment plays a vital role in the process of teaching and learning English. It is much more than just giving a test or assigning a grade. A well-designed assessment provides meaningful insights into the learning progress and helps to shape the educational experience for both students and teachers. Firstly, assessment ensures that learning objectives are being met. Without assessment, it is difficult to know whether students have truly understood and mastered the skills being taught. Assessment helps us answer the fundamental questions. Are my students learning what I'm teaching? Secondly, assessment provides objective feedback about students' strengths and weaknesses. This allows teachers to make informed decisions about what to review, which students may need extra help, and how to adjust future lessons to better address learners' needs. Thirdly, language assessments help to motivate students. When students receive clear feedback and see evidence of their own improvements, they are more likely to stay engaged and committed to their learning goals. Assessment can be a powerful tool for building students' confidence and sense of achievement. The fourth, assessment results offer valuable data for teachers. It helps them evaluate the effectiveness of their instructional strategies, materials, and pacing. If students are underperforming in a particular area, it might indicate the need to revisit the certain topics or change the teaching approaches. The fifth, assessments are also important for curriculum development and educational planning. Schools and institutions often rely on assessment data to make broader decisions such as revisiting system, allocating resources, or planning teachers' training programs. In short, language assessment is an essential part of the teaching and learning cycle. It helps guide instruction and support learners' developments and ensures that educational outcomes are being achieved in a meaningful and measurable way. Now, let's talk about the teacher tips for effective language assessments. Now that we understand how important language assessments, let's explore some practical tips for teachers to make assessments more effective, meaningful, and student-centered. The first, use clear and transparent rubrics. A rubric is a scoring guide that outlines specific criteria and performance levels Sharing the rubrics with students before the assessments helps them understand what is expected and how they will be evaluated. This not only improves fairness, but also encourages better preparation. Second, involve students in the assessment process through self-assessment and peer assessment. When students are given the chance to reflect on their own performance or give constructive feedback to classmates, they develop critical thinking and self-awareness. These types of assessments also promote students' autonomy and engagement. The third, always provides constructive and specific feedback. Avoid vague comments like "good job" or "need improvements." Instead, say things like "your introduction was clear, but try to use more academic vocabulary in your conclusions." Good feedback helps students understand their mistakes and how to improve. The fourth, choose assessment methods that align with our teaching goals and our students' needs. For example, if you are teaching speaking fluency, a conversations or role-play activity is more appropriate than a written grammar quiz. Effective assessment should reflect the real-world skills that students need to try to learn. Fifth, let's talk about how to make use of assessment results. Assessment results can inform our teaching. Don't just give a test and move on. Look at the patterns in your students' performance. Did many students struggle with the same grammar point? Did a majority excel in reading comprehension but fail in listening tasks? Use this data to adjust your lesson plans and instructional focus. Finally, always consider the diversity of your learners. Adapt assessments when necessary to support students with different learning styles, different language backgrounds, or special needs. Creating an inclusive assessment environment helps ensure that every student has the opportunity to succeed. Effective language assessment is not about finding students' weaknesses, but about empowering learning. When thoughtfully designed and applied, assessments become tools for growth and not just a judgment. So, we come to the part of the conclusions. Language assessment is not merely about testing, it is an essential part of teaching learning process. When designed and applied effectively, assessments contribute to a more meaningful, fair, and impactful language learning experience. Teachers must apply the principle of validity, reliability, practicality, authenticity, washback, and fairness to ensure high-quality assessment practices. That is all about the third meeting of English language assessment. If you have any opinion or questions, just type it in the comment sections. Thank you and see you in the next meeting.